What's happening, everyone? Welcome to Airbrush Down and Dirty Tricks. It is Friday night, the 27th, and I think we're up and running right. A lot of juggling before this started tonight. Always something surprising comes up when you think you got everything running and it's not, but I think we're good. Let's see if we got a, looks like we got a sound check on my end. I wonder if we're having a double audio. Yep, this is still playing and that should be done. So that's gone. And let's see, I don't think we have any double on audio. I think we're good. All right. All right, I did hit record. Welcome to Airbrush Down Dirty Tricks. It is Friday night, the 27th, and we are going to have some fun tonight. We're going to do some painting, and we're going to do a little bit of dual skulls. We're going to do, something on the entry-level basics, but not, it'll kick up a notch, but it's perfect for someone who's just getting started out, because we're going to talk about light and dark and shading, how to render a skull, which we'll talk about, light and shading is going to be the biggest part of it, and how to work loose to tight and work with a limited color palette. The biggest reason I wanted to do it this way tonight with the two different panels was I wanted to paint the same image on a dark substrate and on a light substrate. Because most illustrators and artists learned in school to work off a white canvas or white illustration board or white. As an automotive custom painter and illustrator, especially in like automotive culture and that whole scene, a lot of times you're working on dark surfaces. So you work on a black or a dark blue, or so the same image has two different approaches to it. But in the end, the results should be roughly the same. Well, they have your own unique looks, obviously, but you have to approach the way you do it, the order in which you do things. So, and if we work with transparent colors versus opaque colors. So we're going to be going over a lot of that tonight and in this video. So I hope it helps you guys. And feel free to ask a lot of questions and things like that. We'll get back to you as much as we can. And let's just see who we got here in the house tonight. I'm going to stop looking away from you guys eventually. I did get a teleprompter for my birthday last week for my lovely wife. So that's going to be actually integrated. So I'll be able to see your chat in the window right here in front of me. So I can, instead of doing this, I can actually do this. But I got that set up, so that's going to take some reworking. But I'm still working through technical issues. So we're going to get to that. All right, let's see what we got here. Atomic Orlo, watching from my son's baseball game. Well, thank you for watching during your son's game, but make sure you pay attention there, too. Todd goes, what's going on? Ranmount Shea, I'm probably butchering that, and I'm sorry. Darren Plank, what's going on? Mr. Big 06, thank you for popping in for the first time. Welcome to the debauchery. Thank you for popping in on Friday night. How it works, if you're new to the channel, obviously, the whole like, subscribe, share, please. That's great. That helps us out. We typically do these every Thursday at 8 o'clock. Tonight we're doing it on Friday, but I do change it up week to week. And I usually let people know on my socials, and I'll post, actually, let me post my socials for those. These are my socials where you can find me, obviously here. Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, I'm never on, so don't bother. TikTok, not really either. Facebook and Instagram, you'll find me 90% of the time. So, and that's usually where I update my schedule, aside from here on YouTube. So, Kelly Ross, the man, what's happening? Gator 6, Michael Stanton, Brian Moore, Chris Garcia, Dave the Bug Gregory in with the first super chat of the night. Thank you, sir. Let's give you a big old round of applause. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. Who else we got here? I think I got everyone. I've missed you. I'm sorry. And while I'm thanking everyone, before I get this painted, let's talk about our members here. Thank you very much, all the Down Dirty Tricksters, for signing up and joining and helping support the channel. Memberships, for those who are new here, members get 25% off anything in the store as far as downloads and things like that. So McKayFineArt.com, that's here. That has all vector downloads and project downloads and things like that. So, and we'll be doing more members content and stuff. A little housekeeping issue, not issue. I started doing the DDT and suggestions for future works. I have been going through that. I got to try to set that up for the next feed. I wanted to this one, but between last week and this week and the heat wave and some other stuff, and it's just been a busy week. So I will get to that. Yes, more cowbell. Always more cowbell. This name thing is throwing me off big time. What do you mean the name thing? So I got @GatorJoe6 for your name, which that's a new one. So you must have changed something. Everyone else's, I think, is pretty much the same. Unless... No. Maybe they changed... Oh, people's name did change. So it has to do something... Oh, it's got @ symbols in front of it now. So that might... It's not showing the display name. It's showing like @. Yeah, that's weird. Maybe it's something new. I'll have to look into that. It's the first time I've noticed it. I did notice it was weird. Maybe because it's got @ symbols, you can talk at people. I'm not sure. I'll have to look. See, must be something different. Learning at the same time I am. Yeah, because there's @Dave the Bug Gregory and @Chris Garcia PD2. Yeah, it's got. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's. I didn't change any settings, so I wonder if they changed something. Don't know. Oh, so you can respond to each other now. I guess that's what it is. Mine showed up as Atomic Warlord. Yeah, huh. I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with how your settings... People have the settings where instead of your screen name, it's your account name. I don't know. But that's besides the point. Let's get into what we're doing today, because I got a couple cool things going. And what I'm going to do tonight, we're going to paint these skulls. This is the, for those who don't know, 6-pack of skulls is one of my stencil series that's been out for years through Iwata-Medea and Artool. We've had it out. It came out before them, and we had it out years back with DeVilbiss at the time. And then when they kind of stopped focusing on the airbrush side of the market, I brought it over to Iwata Artool. We've had it there ever since. And these are the pack of skulls. So for those who've never seen it, this is a series of 6 different skulls. Each one, it's set 1 and set 2, so you get the first 3 and then the second 3. So if you look at the back here, I'll do, you know what, let me do this. Let's switch cameras up here. Let's go like this. So this is the set. So you get set 1 and set 2. Set 1 gives you side look, say what, and look up. Set 2 gives you old, yeller, say ah, and head down. So 6 skulls that you can do in lots of different positions. And we have the positive and negative. You have a bunch of stuff on the outside, which we'll talk about. I've done some videos on this in the past. It's a refresher, and I want to do some new content with it and use it in different ways. So the skulls are always a good thing to do. They're great for the beginner, the intermediate, the master. You can always do it. So let's do this first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one down. Let's open this. I'm going to slide this back. Oh, that's another surprise we got. We're going to be using something brandy new tonight. We'll talk about that in a second. Let me put that aside. Brandy new for me, too. Okay, so pack o' skulls. Let me just move my camera down a little bit more. Sorry. I don't have all my cameras usually like I have them because of my system failure. We can have it. All right. Pack of skulls. Freshy, fresh and new. Okay, so this is set number 2, which is PKOS2, which has Say Ah, which is the big open mouth one, which is always fun. And then on the edges has the broken glass. I'm not going to use that tonight. I'm going to keep it really simple tonight. This is Old Yeller, which we did I think we used this one a few weeks ago on the Realistic Fire tutorial. So there's a video on that. The True Fire with all the right colors. And obviously that has flames. Old school flames. And then we have Head Down. Head Down is just your straightforward, kind of looking, a lot of forehead, kind of looking down at a skull. And that's the one we're going to use tonight. I'm here because I suck at these skulls. Though I haven't painted in a year since my dad. Oh, sorry about you lost, man. Well, hopefully we get you back into it and go and get you something fun to do. Why not another? I have missed so many live streams. Okay. All right, so let's talk about how these come. These have a positive and a negative. So you have your positive and your open hole, and then you have things around the edge like there's the nose bridge top, nose bridge bottom, eye socket top, eye socket bottom. So circles, eyeballs, and a few things like that, and an extra horn. I haven't done these in a video. Maybe I'll try to use that tonight. We'll see how it goes. These are solvent proof, so you can use them solvent, water-based. You want to clean them off, you can literally soak them in lacquer thinner, and they'll be fine. You can leave them like this because you can paint, and then when you go to positive, you can line it up, or you can separate them. I'm going to separate it. So there's 3 arrows here. 1, 2, 3. Just take an X-Acto or any type of blade and just snap, snap, snap. And if you need to, you can take the little tab off if you didn't get it clean. Do a little scrape. And now you have a skull. You have a nice, lovely skull. Positive, negative, and the cool thing is these fit inside each other. So when I store these, little pro tip, when I want to store these at the end of the day, I actually put them in. I just put a piece of tape here and here, and they're stored. So, nice and easy. So we're going to be using this guy tonight. We're going to use positive and negative on each side, and we'll show you the best way to use this. Get an option right alive. Yeah, I get it. It's funny, when I first came out with these back in the day, we did do a mini set the size of a business card that fit within, it was the size of this, the pocket graphics, which we'll talk about tonight as well, if we need to, if I integrate them, which I probably will. And pretty much only Steve and a handful of people could use them effectively, so they just weren't going to be sellers. So we got that. Our limited palette tonight. Whoa, almost made a mess here. We talked about this. We've used other videos. This is my little holder that kind of keeps your medicine cups from going. All these paints have been mixed, reduced, and strained. These are all Createx colors. I've only used 2. Okay? 3 technically, but I'll explain. 2 colors, and I use the opaque white. You can use Wicked Black, which is the transparent, or you can use the illustration black. And then for this one here, this is Wicked Opaque Black, in case I need it for ultra coverage, but I don't really think I'm going to need it. So what I did here, I had your black and white, which is these 2 here. And then these grays are different mixtures. This is like 15% black to white. This is like 35-40% black to white. So basically, I get multiple tones. And then obviously you can airbrush in between and make anything you want as far as tones. When I do skulls, I very rarely use just black and white. I always use a gray. I used to, when I started originally, I only used black and white, and I kept going back and forth, push, pull, and shading to get grays. And then kind of over the top. And then I started using a gray mixture first instead of white or black, and that started being, my work really got a lot better. You'll see that tonight when I work on the 2 there. So any questions about the paint and the mixtures and things like that? Each of these do have about a 5 to 10% reducer. I think, the opaque white I put 10. The illustration I put like only 5% because the transparent black, because the transparent you don't need as much reducer. So I use the 40-21 reducer. and mix these all up. And then what did I do with my paint afterwards? After you mix the paint, get it all stirred up, what's the one thing I recommend above all else, especially you beginners? You want to save yourself a lot of headache. What's the one thing you need to do to your paint before you start painting? Let's see, anyone can get this, and I really hope so. Or I've been preaching this for a long time for nothing. Let's see what we got. Who's the first one to get it? Anyone? Anyone? I gotta remember there's a delay. Strain it! Yes, yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Brian Moore touches on something really good as well, especially on water-based. Solvent as well, but solvent, the reaction happens a lot quicker. With water-based paints, or anything catalyzed for that matter, even in solvent, once you do your mixture, you should let everything kind of coalesce and do its thing for like 5 minutes. Even just a minute's fine. What you don't do the mix, stir, pour it in the airbrush. You're 90% guaranteed you're going to have issues. The paint's not fully emulsified yet with each other. And what's going to happen is so that's the first thing. It's not emulsified and thin right, so you're going to get thick and thin paints throughout your airbrush. So you got to get inconsistent spray for a little bit. So that's going to happen right off the bat. What most likely will happen, especially if you've opened these paint jars more than, like, say, 3 or 4 times, and you click them and click them and click them, what's on the top there? Let's switch it out. What's this? Dried old paint. And I guarantee you inside here, there's probably some dried paint on the sides, which might have fallen through. So you're going to get you could get little paint chunks and things like that. So what you got to do to all your paint, no matter what, especially if you're using a micron, and I don't care what brand, this is not a brand thing, this is not a paint thing, this isn't a type, this is, whenever you're going to airbrush, remember you're airbrushing through a very small hole. Your airbrush has a 0.5, 0.35 down to a 0.18 nozzle needle. You got to strain your paint, okay? These are the 2 different strainers I use. This one, I've made a video. You can search my past videos. There's a how to make a strainer. Super cheap, and it's really effective. This strains really well. Not ultra fine, but fine enough to do the job. If you want to do like hyper illustration down super fine, like through your micron, after I strain through this, I strain them through these. I find they're overpriced, but they do work well. They're a hard plastic cup that has a stainless steel, very fine mesh. It's actually stainless in here. And they do last a long time. I've gotten hundreds of uses out of one. I strained through one of these once or twice. Sometimes even 3 times. I was talking to Gerald Mendez, and he was talking with an artist he learned from, that he strains all his paints like 5 or 6 times after he mixes and reduces and puts them in a bottle, so they're just ready to go. So, and then you can keep that paint for quite a while. You don't just throw it out at the end of the day. Once you've strained it 3 or 4 times and put it in a bottle, you're probably going to work your whole project with that thin paint, as long as you cap them at the end of the night. So, I don't have a link to these. These are on Amazon. I think they're like $14 a pair or something like that. Like I said, I think they're a bit overpriced. These, you make them, they'll cost you less. There'll be a one-time purchase of this for like $1.50, $2, and then you'll get 100 screens for like $5 or something like that on the screens in here. On the video, there's links, and you'll just get hundreds of uses out of them. So, it's good to go. That's my preaching there. All right, last piece of the discussion. This is something I'm really excited for, and I'm just going to have to do that. Dun, dun, dun. Something new and pretty. I've actually, for the first time, I've been painting for 35 years, 36. I've had almost every type of Iwata. I've had the custom series. I've had microns. I've never had the custom CS with the dual cutaway handle. I never had gotten one before, and then they stopped making them for a long, long time. And this season, they have re-released these out of the vault. I want to say it's been at least 10 years. It could have been longer. So This is a brand new, unused, virgin airbrush. I'm going to break out tonight. I'm going to do this painting. So, this is the Iwata Custom CS. The best thing about I'll explain a couple things as I go through it. The Custom CS is a fine detail to wide. So, it's that nice range. This is where I like to always be. I like to be in like the Eclipse line to a little bit better. That's where I like to work. So, I don't use the microns a lot. I have them. I don't really use them too much or rely on them. I stay right here. Okay. And I paint for long sessions. Rob, say what's going on. I paint for long sessions. So I like the bigger cup. Okay. Whereas a traditional cup is fairly small. Not small, but this holds quite a bit more, so when I'm doing a large job on cars, especially murals, this is going to be a lot better. Then I'll explain this double cutaway handle as well. Aside from that, it's still an Eclipse CS, so it's realistically, you know, the same brush as this. It just has the cutaway handle, and it's got the larger cup. But as far as effective working, this is still the same. Travis Jeter, what's happening? Thank you for popping in, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's break this baby out. Slide this open. You got the tape on the bottom. Let's do a little cut. You got the original custom case. I have the custom cases, but I never had the double cutaway one. I got all the metal cases. I never got one with a double cutaway because the custom series didn't always have the double cutaway. That was something different. So, you always got a sticker. Got to have a sticker. And this is cool, actually. That's new. So they have a couple QR codes here. You can maybe focus in on them. Airbrush cleaning and PDF videos and airbrush manuals, so easy to find. So that's cool. I'll have to maybe screenshot those and get them online here. Your maintenance guide instructions. How to begin, how to put your paint in, and how to start airbrushing. That's all you need. You're done. Oh, I can't read that. And here's your preset handle, Mac valve stuff if you have it, which we don't on this one. We don't need any of that. And then the test card. The nice thing about these brushes is they're tested. So they make sure that they spray to that level before they go in the box. So that is a nice even gradient fade in one continuous motion down to a hairline. Okay, that shows that this is done well, and they've actually been tested, quality control before they leave and ship, which most brands, especially all the Temu knockoff stuff that look like these that they copy, don't do. And so, ooh, and that's new. It actually comes with a moisture trap. These are nice. These work really good. And I'm pretty sure, I'm going to actually check. Yeah, so I saw it online with people like, oh, you get the cheap ones, they're just the same. And I've seen the cheap ones from Harbor Freight and stuff. These are cast metal, like a soft metal. The other ones are just plastic. That's why these cost more money. Let's see. Travis, I need to buy one. Getting tired of dropping bottles off the Eclipse. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and straining, you'll feel better. Another kind of pro tip, if you're a bottle painter, which, you know, so I have bottom feeds. Before I put paint in here, I strain like through basically a piece of, like I put a screen on the top of my bottles is what I do. My moisture trap has slow leg. Oh, really? Yeah, I don't really get that. I don't really use these much because I have a really good system, but if you need something a little bit bigger, these are nice because they give you a little extra weight. So let's pull the airbrush out. We have a little lube, which is the nice clear lube, which this stuff is fine to use. You just don't squirt it in like crazy. A little bit in the needle at the end of a cleaning session, wipe most of it off is just enough. So let's put that aside. So nice single, nice gravity feed. Dual action trigger. Same as any Eclipse, push down, pull back for air. Let's hook this up. Yeah, let's use everything. I'm going to put the moisture trap on. Can't be. And then I'm going to hook this to a quick connect. So I have a male connect here. I'm going to put that on. You know, for me in this situation, this might be a little too big. Let's see, because the only problem with all this is when you stack this in the male, it's a lot. It's a lot on there. So this is a preference thing. If you're working in a hot environment where moisture is going to be an issue, I recommend putting one of these on. And if the quick connect becomes too much height, then what you can do is just you can get rid of the quick connect using one, and then it's not bad. When you have this and a quick connect, it becomes a lot. So I'm going to just take this off for now. And go boy, female, then the male. Woo. There we go. We got air. I'm going to go up about 36, 37 psi, which is where I like to work. I'm a high pressure painter. Nice action. Okay, so big cup. Nice and shiny inside. For anyone worried when they see these start to turn metal after a while, that's normal if you start seeing brass. You can't copper plate the whole outer body and the inside of this bowl because you can't get the current to run on both sides. If a bowl is also chrome on the inside, every time you see them, they won't be welded in one piece. They'll be like a screw-on cup that screws onto the airbrush. Those you can chrome, but you don't get worried if there's nothing in it. It's really normal, perfectly fine. Okay, most handles, 3 ways. Let's talk about is you have no hole on the side and you have a preset. You can actually have another one that older ones had no preset and no hole. That's the old ones. Then you have the singles, which has your hole in the side, which does allow you to tighten and loosen your chuck, and you can actually pull back to clear your paint if you need to do a full pullback. Okay. And what this does, what the double cutaway is, let me show you what that does. So yeah, when you paint, you can do a full clear by like doing that. But what you can also do is you can loosen the chuck here, and you can pull your whole needle out just by grabbing this. And you don't have to take any of this apart. That's the nice thing about it. Now you only do that when you don't have paint in here. If you have paint in here, don't ever do this because then your paint is going to leak in, down the body, and down the air body or the air valve. So never pull this out when there's paint in here. But if you need to, you can. So I'm just going to slide that in. So I've never had one of these. I've only seen them in the stores. And now you're good to go. Which is nice because if you do go to adjust your nozzle, you can loosen it like this. And if you want to spin your needle just a little bit and kind of push it back and work it without pulling all the way out, you can clear an obstruction up in here. So, let's see what we got here. Slow leak. One of mine does, Brian, but it's like 9 years. Yeah, I mean, usually if you're getting a leak, it's probably because they got cracked from dropping or something like that. I'll double check this one. See, I just dropped it. We are going to get to painting soon. Sorry, guys. So I'll just show you how this works. And I said, if you got one of those little piston compressors only with no tank, you want all the insurance you can get. So these are nice insurance. So everything works normal, no leak. And then if you get water in here and you start feeling it coming here, you can just hit this purge. It'll release any moisture that's in there. That's the nice thing about using this. So, good to go. Yeah, my other four still work. I got the TH custom. Okay, what's that? I'm trying to read and do the same time. And the other thing about airbrush is here, if you like extra tension right here, you can loosen or tighten this right here, and this will actually add tension to your spring. And look at that nice brandy new clean needle. Nice. Let's start this out. Actually, something's feeling a little off here. I want to actually show you guys where the spring is. I'm going to pull this out. There's your spring. If you feel like you need some more tension, you can always just pull on that a little bit. Do it here. Go here. And if you do decide you want a little lubricant, what I do, if at all, is I put just a little bit right in here. We'll wipe most of it off. Okay. Let's put that back in. Gary Shees, what's happening? Do you seat your needle all the way to the nozzle or back it off a bit? Well, no, you have to seat it all the way to the nozzle. If you seat it back, it's not gonna. It's not gonna work. So I leave it like this, throw it right in. Maybe I'll give it a little spin to make sure it's seated. Tighten up the chuck. You don't want to force it. All right, let's paint. No more talking. What y'all came here for. First half hour of just chatting. But I am recording this because I wanted to break down to some shorter videos and stuff like that. So I wanted to get all this in, get it recorded. First thing I do with any new brush, I just put clear fluid in it. Like cleaner. I run that. Okay, airbrush basics. Let's talk about that quick. Push down with the trigger. That just gets air. You shouldn't have any paint coming out. So if you have anything coming out, you got a problem. Meaning you usually got dirt in your nozzle or it's not seated right. Push down for air. Pull back for paint. If I pull back a little, you'll see I get just a little fine paint. You see right there. That's just that littlest bit. I'm gonna pull back more. You get more paint. See, I get a nice steady cone. If I pull back a lot, I get a wide burst. Which means if I want smooth paint, I'm going to be here where the cone is. I'm going to do like a big fill or fade. If I want detail, I'm going to be close, and I'm only going to pull a little bit. And the closer I am, the smaller the stream is. Okay, because it comes out in a cone. See? Nice and responsive. We're good to go. Alright, let's talk about our panels here, what we got going on. I have two, count them, two 8 by 12 panels. This one is pretty much a white, but it's not pure white. And this is almost black. I decided not to use the panels straight out the gate, just how they come. Because this is normally a white panel, and then it's a black panel. So I scuffed these down with 600, and I did base coat them. I base coated this with an off-white gray. So maybe 5% black to the white, very little. So it's in. If you were to put pure white on it, like paper, you can tell this is gray. It looks white on camera, but it's gray. And this is not quite black. It's actually got a little bit of white, like 5-10% white to it, to make it just a little charcoaly. I did it because I wanted to paint these like not from just a scuffed e-coated panel. I wanted it to be I wanted it to be sanded base color. Okay, so that's what these are. Bobby said, what's happening? Thank you to all my gold skulls. And so I wanted that like this. You know what I'm going to do? Because I think it'll be funner. I'm going to grab another one of these skulls. Because I do have a lot of them. I should have one. Let's see if I can find a gently used one. Okay, this is what they look like after you use them for a while. And these are years old. Nice and well used. Now you can actually see better. Alright, so what I'm going to do, you can obviously just take a skull stencil and hit it and hold it and spray. But when you get a lot of detail, you don't want to like hold it the whole time. So what I like to do is take a little piece of tape, put it usually right there in the center, and let's place this guy that looks centered-ish. Might not on camera, but let's see. 2 inches. Look at that. 2 and 2. Look at that. Perfect. Can I do that twice? And then we'll take our overly painted one. I'm going to go same height. Right here. Boom. Let's see. Oh, 2 and 2-ish. Okay, so this question comes up a lot. You know, do I go dark to light or light to dark? Blah, blah, blah. The answer is yes. You go either way you need to go. So, do you work from darker to lighter colors or light colors to dark colors? Well, it depends on your substrate, depends on your subject matter. In a lot of cases, on light colors, you would start from lighter tones, not necessarily the dark, not necessarily the lightest color. But if you just do it a black and white, then you would start with a weak blackish color or black gray, and then you'd work up to your final dark detail. So that's light to dark on a light colored surface. If you're using colors, most times you would do lighter versions of colors, and you would bring the tonal value up to darker, richer, more solid colors, and you get to your dark final details. That's how it works in a lot of art. When you're on a dark surface, it's usually flipped. So you're on a dark surface, you're going to start with white. Or your lighter colors that are more opaque, but you can't use transparency, they won't show up. So you got to use opaque colors and build your tonal. And then, so you go in light, and then you do your darks, because you can't do dark on dark. You have to get your contrast. So it's all about contrast. So what you're going to see here is I'm going to use these same colors in different orders. So some will have, we'll take the gray, and we'll do some gray here, and we'll do some gray here, and you'll see the difference. Because I'm not using just black and just white. If I use it just black and just white, I use black here to start, and I'll use white here to start. I like to start in the gray tone, okay? I found by starting in the gray tones, either way, so in the, do I go dark to light, light to dark? The answer is neither. You start in the middle, and then you push-pull, depending which direction you need the artwork to go. I found that to be a very more reliable way to paint, because it allows me almost to paint like an underpainting, or like a weak version, kind of like a shadow or a semi-transparent version, and map everything out, and then decide these parts get darker and these parts get brighter, and I can push-pull the contrast and the tone. So I like to start in the middle, and which yields a better result. I found over the years, if you're on black vehicles or white vehicles or blue vehicles or red, doesn't really matter, because if you start in the middle, then you can push or pull to work it into the base color of the vehicle or substrate or canvas or what have you. So you kind of start in a mid-tone range of your color palette is what I found works best. Not in every case, but in a lot of cases. So that's where I start. London Pen, what's happening? What's going on? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, if we noticed, for some of you guys just joining, we don't know what it is. If it's a YouTube thing, if they changed it, but everyone's screen names is at, like, Gary Shee 1971, which I think might be your actual YouTube channel, like, your actual channel, like, where you're at, not, like, the nickname for the channel. So I think they might have added something new, so I'm not sure. Because now London Pen is London Pen Co. instead of just London Pen. So yeah, I'm not sure what the change is. There's probably a way to change it in your settings, but it might also let you guys message to each other, like during, like almost like Facebook when you reply to someone. So if you put at, so if like Bobby Silva does, you know, at Chris Garcia, it may like do a response to him directly, like it happens to Facebook. I think that's what it's doing. I'm not sure. Thunderstorms rolling. If taught if I disappear, it will not be voluntary. I get it. We've had those this week, and the thunderstorm is what took out my system 2 weeks ago, and why I've had some issues. So I won't hold it against you. All right, let's get to it. All right. So my color palette here. I don't have my color palette camera because that on my old system is on camera 5, and I only have 4 inputs now until my new system comes in, which I did pre-order. I did pre-order the big studio switcher to get back to the 8 sources where it can do a lot more. So I don't have my top down, so that's the best you're going to get. So on float 17. 12 things. I wonder why it didn't show 12 things I like. Oh. Yeah, so everything's weird. Everything's different. So if I'm messing with everyone's name, sorry. Okay. So, brand new brush, no paint. I have a dark gray and a light gray, okay? I think I'm going to use this darker one so it shows up a little better here, and you're going to see that what shows up really dark here looks almost white here. And that's when, if you ever followed a great artist and good friend of mine, Daniel Powers, he did his older videos, I think his new classes should talk about it too, about the difference, you know, color is relative because it's relative to what's around it. So you're going to see this dark gray, what it looks like. Actually, I'm going to show you guys. Even though I've strained this 5 or 6 times, I'll show you what's the beneficial thing to both of these. These strainers fit right in an airbrush cup, so you can pour into it. But also, mine do the same thing. So either way, they're great to strain into. These, if I just put it in, triple insurance. Let's see if we get anything. Just going to put it in, let it work through. And that looks pretty good. I've already strained this 3 or 4 times. I do recommend, if you're using the strainers like this, clean them out right away, because if they dry up on that stainless steel, it's really hard to get them out. I just use a little IP, isopropyl alcohol, and just give it a quick burst. Little spray bottles are your friend. Easy cleanup. I heard... SSNT notifications to my message. Oh, yeah, let's see. Yes, my Raffin custom page is Bobby Sylvia 76. They did something new. Yeah. Bobby, what did you get? Did it work? Let's see if I'm... Okay. Before I paint, let's make sure everything's working. I'm just going to use a test panel here. Push down, no paint. Pull back. Let's have a little paint. I did thin the hell out of this, so you're going to see how it just shows up. So let's show you really quick. I'm just going to work on the skull for a second. And I'm not going to do any background. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have a little background kind of smoky fire on each of them. Really simple, nothing crazy. We'll talk about that as I get it. But let's talk about airbrushing with a skull stencil, okay? First and foremost. This is going to be more traditional. This one is going to have a, basically it's going to look like the skull's black and only need a little side lighting. So it's not going to be a lot of gray in here. So whenever you're doing a skull or anything with stencil, you don't want to flood it. Okay, you just want to paint. What I told you was paint on the stencil. Okay, don't paint outside here. Paint on it and let the overspray catch it. So watch. You see this? I'm just hitting around the edge. Very light. Just a little registration. It's almost like putting a shadow, and it's probably not really showing up. I want to see if we can zoom in and focus in on that. Okay. Now, I wonder if give me a second. We're going to try to switch to camera 2 here. I'm just going to adjust the camera before I switch it over and see if I can focus it. Okay. Alright, let's switch to my 3/4 view cam so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay. See that? Yeah, let me zoom out just a little more. Okay. I'm just kissing it, almost like putting a drop shadow. And see how it looks like I'm barely doing anything? And I'm keeping in mind a top-down light source, okay? Basically, I always figure for something like this, it's a top-down light source, so the light's here coming straight down, casting a shadow down below everything. Okay, so you look, I barely sprayed anything. And if I take this off, you have plenty to work with. What's happening, Ryan? Welcome. So, remember this rule, and I talk about it all the time. Especially, I try not to get a lot of this stuff in my. I don't use it very often. It's more beginner, because if you get these pretty heavy, you got to work them out. So try not to get too much in here. Remember this one rule: you can always add paint. It sucks to take it away. Okay, so. Basically, what I mean is, if you didn't get enough, you can add more. But once you go over too much, you have too much. So really simple. What I do now, before I do anything, for the skull itself, not too worried about here because there's going to be smoke. Eye sockets, nose, and underneath the teeth. Okay? Top-down light source. If you look at a skull, any skull reference like this, when you look down at it, you see, notice where the light hits? The light hits the bottom of the eye sockets, a little bit inside the bottom of the sockets, and it's darker close to here, okay? I can switch up here and show you. So if you look, see how it's catching, the light's catching the inside of the socket and the very leading edge, that's your bright, and your dark is on top, okay? We're not going from a photo reference, so you don't have something to copy. So I'm trying to teach it in a way that you guys will understand the way light works. So just like shading a sphere or a ball, basics of shading. So when I do this, I stay to the top. So I'm painting more in the stencil. I'm trying not to get into these details. And if you have trouble, you can just put a piece of tape over these little guys. But I put a little bit more right in here. A little bit more right in here. Okay. If I'm going to do an eyeball, like a traditional eyeball, the nice thing about these is you have these circles here. You have small, medium, and large. Positive and negative, small, medium, large. We have both. So what I like to do, if I'm going to do one eye, and you guys know I a lot of times do one. Let me switch up cameras. So what I do is, watch where I paint. I'm going to paint pretty much right in the middle of the circle, towards the bottom. This is basics, guys. So, trigger down, air on. If you're finding it a little too much, drop your pressure. I just dropped down to 25 from 35. And I'm going to paint, look what I'm painting. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see it from that angle. Let's see. See where I'm painting? That's where I'm painting. I'm kind of angling down a little bit. And watch when I pull it away. Whoops. Whoa. You get a nice soft edge. Because that can be freehanded easier. You kind of dumped behind. Okay, so I'm only going to do one eye. Same thing with the other eye. I'm just going to shade here. And I'm not putting anything more down the bottom. Nose, just up in here. Little bits. Okay. That's it. I can do under here. Under the kind of like cheekbones down to the temples. These are really exaggerated. Because really you'd have more skull in here. But watch, just a little bit of shadow. And then I come under here. Under the cheek. Under the cheek and kind of come up. Kind of come up. And then I don't do anything on the sides. I just do more underneath. And sometimes I'll give one pass around, just make sure. Like I said, this is a medium gray. Gotta get back to the shop, thing. Travis, man, always appreciate you popping in, man. Get back to working on some cool stuff. Pop in anytime. And don't forget to watch the reruns. Okay, so now when I pull it off, by doing 2 passes like I did, you already start to get a nice skull that leaves plenty of room for shading and things and to add. I can keep going darker. I can start adding texture and stuff into here and shading, things like that. And teeth, we're going to get to all that, okay? But that establishes a nice midpoint reference. It's not overworked. If I had started with a transparent black, which is how I used to do it, my first pass would be this dark, and my second pass would be darker, which isn't a game, it isn't an overkill, but it starts leaving you less room for more passes. I can now go through with black, freehand if I want to, and it'll do all the line work and keep it really simple. And I could probably do 3-4 passes. So my structure of my skull would have 3 or 4 passes. Okay. Now, let's get over to the dark side of the skull. Light side, dark side. I gotta see if this is gonna actually show up. Yeah. So now this is gonna show up, but remember, I'm doing a background glow here. I'm not trying to put really much inside these eyes or nose or anything. So I want to just focus, and I'm just gonna put my hand here, on this kind of glow that's gonna happen. Okay, that's all I'm doing. I'm gonna come out to the side. I'm gonna come under here. And I got a question the other day, it was on Reds, on how to do a glow. The key to doing a glow is to step out of it. To go from like a dark to a mid, to like a mid, light, and then a bright. Or the more steps, the more glow. So you could do like mid, you start with dark, go to like mid-dark, then to mid-light, then to light, then to the brightest bright if you want to get a glow. Okay, the more steps you have, the more you can kind of pull off with your glow. Alright, so from this angle, probably doesn't look as much. But I can do this because I am going to do like a glowing eye. And the cool thing about these is I have like a human eye, or you can do an eyeball. Which should I do, guys? Do I do an eyeball or like a human kind of meaty eye? What do you guys think? What do you guys want to see? Give me some answers. I'll take the first best of 2 or best of 3. Yeah. That I see come across. Human eye. Fleshy eye. That's 2. So we're going to do it with a human eye instead of the eyeball. This is the eyeball. This would be kind of a more fleshy eye. Let me grab. Let me try to move the camera. Good. Okay. That good? That good? I got to try to keep it centered in the screen so I can clip these later. Here we go. Awesome. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this part of the stencil here, which is kind of a fleshy eye. And I'm going to do it on both. So I'm going to put one here. Now, just like I painted on this in the middle of the stencil, I'm going to paint in the middle of here. It doesn't look like I did much. Okay, but it's there, and it's going to leave me something to work with later. Now I'm going to flip it. I'm going to hold the same position. So if I look at it like this, I know that I was just covering one of these little kind of eyebrow marks. We don't want to make them cross-eyed, do we? Oh, it could be fun. I'm going to cover that side. Yeah, there we go. I'm just going to hit it. It's barely there, but that's going to give you something to glow from. And when I take this off, you can see it's giving me enough to work with, but I need to use the lighter gray to really push it. But I can use this to practice my design, okay? So now what I can do is I can work with this darker gray, and this is where the loose to tight rolls in. Dark to light with Mike LaValle with fire. Okay, well, loose to tight when you're doing fire and things like that and that kind of glow is you want to work loose and soft, like Ryan said, softer edges. You get softer edges. You do get softer edges when you use a stencil like this and keep it light. But you can also work soft to hard, loose to tight, same kind of premise. I'm going to map out a simple fire. And do I have... Did I bring the painting out? No. What did I do with it? Let me go grab... I'm going to grab a couple panels that I'm basing this off of. Shoot, I think some of these panels are older than my YouTube channel. Probably around since before some of you guys even started painting. Okay? I'm basing this lesson off an older panel I did, but I never did it on light side, like this. Okay? This was done with nothing. This was just done with white. Okay? So I bring this up because you'll see that this is just white and it looks cool, but this new one is going to be cooler because it's going to have multiple tones. Okay? And I didn't put any detail inside here. It's just a stencil with a little bit of fire coming out of a little bit of smokiness coming out of the eyes. Same skull, and this shows you how old this design is. This is in early days of fire. Okay. I taught this one, I believe this was this could have been at Bear Air actually, back in the day, at one of the classes. This is from 2010. This is a 15-year-old painting. But it runs around the same premise, and you'll see it's loose to tight. My fire wasn't as good then, but it still was kind of cool. But it's old. It is old. But yeah, so we're going to work something like this, but on both sides. This side I'm going to do more like sooty smoke. This side will be more like fire, okay? And that's kind of where we're going to show you some of the differences. So, when you do fire, keep it really simple. Keep your wrist moving, okay? S-curve it up. It gets bold, it gets wider at the bottom, and dissipates at the top. So I can come up like this, and I can kind of sketch over like this, and kind of come up, and just get nice little S-curve, and maybe back again like that. And I can do that kind of glow, and kind of sketch. The same side this way. I can do just a little bit here. Maybe here we come back up and over. And just kind of see what happens. This way here, this way can go under, and it can get a little bigger. You know, just a little bit. And if I don't like something, I can just soften it up. And it's just the roadmap, okay? You keep that loose. Keep it all loose. Okay, it's just a sketch. That's the nice thing about working like this. On this side, how many pieces do you have of your previous paintings? How many pieces? As far as just this skull one, I've done this skull hundreds of times in different variations. I don't do many things over and over again. I have a few that I repeat through the years or repeat pieces of. Very rarely do I do a duplicate. Sometimes they have different twists on it. Alright, so on this one, the cool thing is, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hit inside the nose a little bit. I think I'm going to go up to the brighter. Yeah, I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go back to bright, and we'll show you. Okay, so I'm just going to switch this back. Okay, so skull here. Now this, I don't want to be as loose. On a dark surface, I can have this glow overspray, let it really fade out in this soft stage because it just adds to the glow effect, okay? On a white surface, especially if you want like a car, you got to be careful. You can't go as nuts. So you got to be a little bit more controlled. This way I went this way. This way I'm going to come up like this and maybe make it a little smokier and have it maybe go off to one side and have it kind of dip down like this. So this will almost become like a drop shadow. You know, kind of working like that. Notice one thing I haven't used yet. What haven't I used yet? And this is really key to getting good at doing fire and smoke. What haven't I used? Yeah, dude. Yeah, yard sales. Yes, I used the new Vault one. I literally got this brush in the mail 5 hours ago. So this is its first use. And I love it. They're great. I mean, it's an Eclipse. I'm an Eclipse user. I love them. This just has a few nice options. No, I haven't used candy, and I would if I was doing, yeah, like a glowing color fire. But I haven't used a stencil for the fire. I haven't used a curve edge. I haven't used anything like, you know, I haven't used any shields to create the fire, okay? I never do on the first pass. I always kind of try to build it organically and structurally. And then I find where a stencil works. And I say to myself, oh, I like that. Let me sharpen that. And this is going to be more like a black smoke, so that's why, versus it's going to get brighter here in fire. But so I like that curve. Now that was just freehand, but if you look, it just happens to work. I can sharpen that. This I can go, oh, that works. I can sharpen that a little bit. I can leave this side soft and sharpen this side of this one. Okay, I'm getting a little bit in my head. I don't want too much, but that's why I don't use this too early. Because once you start using a template, you get locked into that shape. So the beginning, you need to stay loose and organic. Like even here, like, oh, I kind of want to do a smoke curl. Maybe have that curl under. You know what I mean? Leave it loose. Don't overdo it. And that's why by working with this transparent gray I mixed, you can play around with it a lot. Okay? You really kind of get there. But I'm not going to do too much on here. I'm just going to leave that. We'll get to more of that at the end. What I want to do is talk about the skull itself. I really miss my 8 camera setup. I got to keep moving one of these cameras to get this. Okay, let's go here. Let's go back and forth. All right. Skull itself. When you look at a skull, before I get to anything, and we'll get to shading and highlighting and doing some things like that. But before I, actually, you know what? Before I do that, let me ask a question to you guys while I'm doing this. On this skull here, I can do it so the skull probably stays black, like this one, with very little edge lighting on it. Or I can make the skull here brighter and have more texture and look like an actual lit skull. You know, maybe a little shinier, almost like chrome. But as opposed to a skull that's in silhouette. Let me know which way you like it better, because I could bring in more detail on the black skull if I bring the contrast up to more white or gray, as opposed to leaving it in silhouette. So that's leaving it in silhouette, and I'd maybe put a little bit of shading in, but it's really basic. Or I can bring up the contrast as if I was painting, like how I paint a skull on a black motorcycle. Okay. You know, yeah, I can kind of bring it up like this. Not that chromey, because I'm not really trying to do chrome, but brighter, more scully-ish. Okay, yep. Light it up, yep. Donna! What's going on? I'm assuming that's Donna from Maple, just because all the names look weird tonight, because they obviously changed something. Okay, so let's talk about texture. Let's first talk, before we get into texture, let's talk about shading. Where is my reference? Here. Let's see here. All right. When we talk about shading, let's not just go with a skull, okay? Skulls get complicated, but I like these little chrome skulls because you can see how everything's really playing off with light. But let's just take a basic ball, for example, which the top of the skull really is a ball. Okay? And if I take a bright light, and let's see if I can get it. Hold on. It's kind of washed out in the camera. I'm trying to get, yeah. Okay, see how it's bright here, dark here. It's cylindrical. I'm doing this live. This isn't planned. I can add some funny stuff in later. Basic shading. So what I want to do is I want to treat this skull like a sphere. And I'm just going to do some coarse shadowing. Again, that's the nice thing about working this light color. I'm just going to hit it light. Oh, let me make sure we're zoomed in. And crisp. I don't have manual focus on. I mean, I have manual focus on, so I got to adjust it manually. Because autofocus, when you're on these live, when you're this close, when you bring the airbrush, it focuses on the airbrush and not the painting. So you got to keep it. Okay, so notice what I'm doing. I'm just shading the outer portion. Okay, but I'm not going all the way to the edge. I'm only going like 80% to the edge. Why am I doing that? You know, what's the reason for me not to put the shading all the way to the edge? I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And I'm going to bring it right down into the eyebrows, okay? And because it's habit, I'm going to pull my air cap off. Not needed, but I want to get super close, and I don't want this to be dragging. So I get my needle really, really close. Don't know. Aha! Someone got it. It does bring up the contrast. Luis, thank you. And it is a reflection, and what it really is, in simple terms, it's secondary light. So as a bright light source hits here, the light travels past it, it gets a shadow, and it usually bounces off another surface, and bounces back, and you get a secondary light. If you look at your airbrush, you actually notice it. Look at the horizontal line below the blue line, because I blue lights the background, so that blue line is like the bright. Then you have that core shadow where it's dark, and then the bottom is actually my hand reflection. Look. So if I put something, it's the light reflecting my hand color back to the bottom of the airbrush. Because watch what happens if I put something black there. It stays black. If I put the stencil here, it changes the color. It's secondary light. Okay, so it's reflecting back up. So there's your highlight is where it's blue, because I have a blue studio light. And then there's your core shadow, and then there's your secondary light bouncing back. Okay, so that's why you don't go all the way to the edge. The only time you go on the edge is if you're in a super black room with no reflective surfaces and no secondary light reflecting back, so you would actually shadow right to the edge. Okay, again, I can always add more, so I just do a little bit. When I get down to here, eyebrows and the cheekbones are cylindrical. So you shade them like a cylinder. So the darker would be on the bottom. So as it rolls into the eye, I just do a little bit under the eye. Let's see if I can go in a little tighter. So if I go in tighter, sorry, I got to bring up, this is what post-editing is going to be for. I can bring up the contrast a little bit more. See, this is the stuff, this is the parts you don't see on other YouTube edited content. All these little adjustments that get made. But in reality, that's the reality of painting. Which I kind of like to show that. It's not all just rosy. Okay. Okay, so same thing. I'm going to come up the eye. I'm just going to do a little bit of core shadow. A little bit of core shadow down here, not all the way to the edge. A little bit of core shadow. And for the cheekbones coming over the mouth, I just shade a little bit down. And just push it back. Because when I get to the darker colors, I'm going to start doing the details. But this is how you get all your simple parts in. You can do a little bit right off here. A little darker right where the kind of cheekbone meets the temple. And if you went a little too dark here, hello, thank you very much for joining back up. Maintain that gold skull status. Thank you, thank you. So you notice this side I did less than that side. If you went too far, like I think I put a little too much darkness, or it looks a little cartoony. If you found you do that, for you guys, you can always take the eraser and kind of get it out if you want. Or just work from here and work the shading up a little bit on that side, on this side, and kind of come up the middle. And I usually cut across the eyes just a little bit there. So you notice just that simple shading has already given you a nice skull that's already got some depth, but it's not overdone. It's not super cartoony, just by working quick and soft. I'm going to get into texturing in a second, and then I'm going to get how to do your white details and stuff on this type of surface by using Illustrator tricks, illustration tricks like erasing and using electric eraser and a stick eraser or things like that versus white paint. On this side, we're going to have to use white paint. But, so if we want some texture here, let's bring out one of the best stencil series, aside from mine, obviously. Not to toot my own horn, I'm just being sarcastic. Aiwata-Medea Texture FX. I think this is from number 1. This is from the 3rd set, I believe. So, again, don't overuse stencils. Texture, watch what I do. I'm going to put it down. I'm actually going to hold it off the surface just like 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to spray really soft in the same pattern I did this in. So watch what happens. See how little that was? So minor. Just a little texture. A little bit of texture. I'm going to do a little bit more up top. Because remember, the rule is we can always add more. Okay? I'm just putting some skull texture. I can even do a little bit of fine texture around the eyes. A little bit around the mouth. And that's it. That by itself, if you can do this right off the bat and consistently do this and control so you don't go too far, your work becomes immensely easier. And I say this because I used to do harsh black to harsh white, harsh black to harsh white, trying to control it by doing blend fades and shading and overlaying, and it would either go too far and have to go back and correct it, go too far, come back and correct it. You get the blue shift on black, you try to mess something up, and then you go black over it, then you go back, and it doesn't look, and that push and pull doesn't work as well, and you start just overdoing it over and over again. When you work in the mid-tone like this, I have a place to go. I can go a little darker, and I can go a little lighter with white. If I don't want to use white paint for the highlight, I can go in and I can do a little white erasing texturing by just doing little picks. I can do a highlight right across here. It's going to be a little too sharp for me like this with this stick, but you can do it. If you guys are amateur and really have trouble with teeth, this is the best lesson for you. If you can't highlight the teeth, add a little shading, and take the eraser and just carve out the teeth, the tops of the teeth, with highlights. It already starts looking like teeth. It's a basic old school Illustrator technique. The septum of the nose, just a little eraser line. And this is base coat down here. I don't have any clear over protecting it. I'm just being really simple. No, I'm not using over-reduced black. And that's something I used to do as well. Over-reduced black, you won't get this soft. This is, whoops, sorry. This is the colors are solid black, which is an illustration black, so it's semi-transparent. Pure white, which I'm going to use. And then these are a mixture of the two at different levels. And I over-reduce these a little bit, so the grays are the more transparent, softer. This way I can push and pull more in the grays. Then I use the over-reduced or thin black to carve in the details. I find that process works a lot better. Okay. With this same gray, since you wanted it, let's get some texture in this skull. But, and maybe we'll get a little, actually we'll get a little brighter as well. And I'll show you that. So I'm just going to put a little bit more texture And I can afford to be a little heavy-handed here, because this is pretty dark on the black. And I'm just kind of pushing it all to the background. And on the dark surface, you'll notice this is really not showing up much, which is good. The worst thing I can do on these is like over white it at the beginning. By working this way, it gives you a little bit more time to play. Okay? And the other thing, by going this route, we can then use the stencil to carve in some black shadowing and details by getting it lighter. But I'm going to do something first. This has all been done with the same color. So you'll notice this color, and I'm just doing some sketching here for later because I have it out before I get it darker. Okay, and this color are the same, but two different looks of mapping out your project. And planning. Okay, so that's the darker gray, okay, that I mixed up, which was probably, like I said, it was probably 30% black. So I'm just going to dump that out. When you go into a lighter color, look, I don't need to go nuts. If I want to get, this is so close, I can just dump it in. If you want to be sure, you can just take a little paper towel, give it a quick wipe, clear it, you're good to go. Actually, with these, if you want, you can do a full clear by pulling back on the hammer here, just going like that. But not really needed. Okay, this paint's been already strained 3 times. I'm just going to go through it. Remember, if you want to strain, you could use one of the strainers I make or the ones I bought and just give it a little extra insurance. So now this gray on this side barely shows up, but on this side, look how close to white it looks. Okay, so I'm going to do a brighter outer glow here just around it. So let me tape this back down. Okay, into position. I'm going to make my glow a little bigger here, maybe a little bit under the mouth, and let's brighten them eyes up. You know, I'm really, these you can do pretty quick, but I'm really taking my time tonight, because I don't want to rush it. So now that eye's nice and bright. I'm going to flip it around, same one. I'm really just hitting the middle, keeping it soft. And what I like to do, I can just do a nice glow, a little bit more on the inside, a little bit off the cheeks. I don't want to go too much because now I'm going to lighten the inside. Okay, so see how we get a little extra glow around them? Okay. If you want to really punch this guy out, what you can do now is we can take this. What I like to do is make sure there's no water on the back. If you want to sharpen him up a lot, now you can take the negative, which I like to use these because those hold nicely there. They hold nicely here. Oops, I'm not in true position. I actually shifted. Let's get in. There we go. Just get that. Okay. So if you want to keep protected, you could obviously mask more. But if I want to make now, I'm not so worried about the teeth sockets in here. I'm moving my other camera in position. Give me a sec. So now what I can do is I'm just going to take this edge so I can come up here. I'm going to brighten where the teeth are in the center. I'm going to come up. I'm not going to worry about erasing some of this detail. I'm going to bring up that core highlight up the center. And now I'm going to hit the light source. And I'm not going to be spraying over here because I'm going to let that darkness kind of play back in. I can hit a little bit here. But I want to hit mainly here. You look at this. What do you see? It's super bright. So we're going to hit this. Remember, this is not pure white. This is still gray. I still have another layer of brightness I can work. I can hit the center of that skull nice and bright and kind of bring it out. Now I can pop this off. Okay, so now you start to shape the skull. And I'm letting the sides go in the darkness a little bit more. But I need to punch the center a little. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit here. And actually when I get to the dark, it's going to where it's going to make a lot more sense. Because I can kind of bring in the darks here. Because I switched gears, I should have did this brighter first when I did this. And then I could carve the detail. But we're just going to work it easy. Keep it really simple. And then I'm going to work back here. I'm going to work these glows a little bit more. Remember, I am doing two paintings here, so. So a little bit more bright up here. I could follow that map a little bit. I got a little overspray. That just becomes fire. No mistakes, just happy accidents. But I can kind of use that and keep it, again, keeping it soft. If I was just doing a skull to nothing, I'd already be done. But I'm trying to kind of shape this fire around and kind of walk you through that loose to tight mentality. We'll get it right up towards the top. Okay, so that's established. Because when I start carving in the black detail here, I'm going to carve it here. Okay, so yeah, I got that mid-tone worked on both. Everything's in its mid-tone. This gray, look, it barely shows up here, but it's a little bit. I can add some little stuff in the background. I can blend some little textures. It'll actually soften some things up. And I can make things that are a little too dark. I can soften it out so it blends. And this is all setup work. This doesn't look it, but you're close to done at this point. Because you got to go in for all the freehand details. Some flood strokes. Yeah, just subtle. Like if I wanted a black skull, I would have skipped this whole thing and we would have been done. But I want to show you kind of, we'll get them roughly to the same tonal value. Okay. I'm going to leave this in here. I'm going to switch to my Takumi Eclipse, I think, for this darker color. Just so I have it. Let me clean this brush out. Just want to run a little reducer through it. It's been dry for a week. Actually, a week and a half, because the last time I touched these was last Monday. So we've got roughly half an hour left. All right. Can we do 2 skulls in the last half hour? Can we finish these to a good state? What do you think? I think so. And maybe this is something for those, I don't know if anyone here is from the UK, but not almost a year from now, next May, we're going to be here. We're going to be doing the International Airbrush Days on the 1st of May, that's how you say it in German, May, 1st through the 3rd. It's going to be me, David Naylor, Melania, I'm not going to butcher her last name, Anastasia, Rod Fuchs, and Marissa. We're going to be teaching at International Airbrush Days, and we just had a meeting about it this morning. It's going to be cool. First night, it's going to be a couple-hour demo just for everyone, and then I'm going to have a 4-hour class the next day. Then that evening is going to be another 1 hour or so demo. Probably going to do tech and plot and concept work, and then there's going to be a 4-hour automotive graphics, old school flames and graphic artwork. That's going to be International Airbrush Days. So if you're interested in that, you're over in the UK or want to be, it's going to be a killer event. So that's coming up as well. And let's not forget, do my housekeeping before I get into all the final. And the brands we like to use here and where you can get them. Obviously, I like fisheye filters to keep my stuff clean. I'm using Iwata. This was all done in Createx colors. Even the base, this was all done in Createx. This is like a gray I mixed up of Wicked Opaque, and this is a black I mixed a little white into to give it a charcoal. And you can get those at Maple or Coast Airbrush Supply. And obviously, this is my Vision Air easel. I don't get paid by these sponsors to say that. I just like to inform people of what I like to use and show the results I get with it. Most of the stuff I paid for. Some of this stuff is given to me to try, but I'm not trying to push it, and I'm not reviewing it for you. It's just what I like to use, and they support me. I support them. It's all good. Yes. All right. So again, I'm gonna make this the 5th time strain in this. This is black, straight black. This is the illustration black. Oh, this is the Wicked black, but pretty similar to the illustration black. It's just you don't have to add the 40-30 or 40-50 into it. Let's get really tight and small. Okay. All right. Wrapping this thing up with some detail. Skull. Back to the first step. Okay. I go back over it. And I stay more strategic here. I'm going to start with the eyeball. I'm just going to make it a little darker on the sides. Okay. Let me see if I can flip over here. Yeah. Okay. So watch again where I paint. I'm painting on the stencil itself, towards the bottom, and coming up. Okay, I'm not painting around it, I'm painting on it. Okay? It gets a little darker under there. A little hard to see. And then I'm coming up here, and I'm painting the top area a little darker again. Nose, just the top of the nose. Really put it in the shadow. So I'm going to pull this off so you see that. Actually, I'm going to do this side and leave that side off, and you'll see. Underneath the temple, and underneath the cheek, where it meets the skull, I'm hitting just underneath, just under here, and I'm just going under the side just a little bit. Okay, didn't clean it well. Okay, so now you'll notice the difference from left and right should be. See the difference? See how much depth, more depth this side has? Because it just had a little bit more shading. Now it's pushed off the surface. This is what I'm talking about light to dark. Understanding contrast values. But because I started with gray and then to black, you'll see the difference in contrast. If I had just started with black from the beginning, I'd only have that black over white, and it would not have that smooth depth, that soft feel, that loose to tight, okay? Loose down here to tight gives me that nice lift. So from a distance, look how much lift that gave me. And understanding top-down light source. You look at the nose, you can see a lot more, depth in the nose. Let me see if I can zoom in on the texture there. Yep. So you just get a lot more lift. Everyone see that? Okay. Now, I'm going to put it back. And same thing I'm going to repeat here. I'm just staying to the top of that eye. Very little bit. I'm staying under the cheekbone. Under the cheekbone and under the teeth here. And we can do, I always like a little drool staining coming down. Probably didn't clean this brush that well last time. I think I got a little bit of goop on my tip because it wasn't, yeah. See that? Little bit there. This needle probably needs replacing. I think it's been hooked a few times and straightened, so it's catching some paint. Yep. A little bit of downward dagger strokes. Give it a little bit of drool. Same thing here. With a shade just under. It'll give it a little. There. I'm not painting in this detail area at all. Boom. That is almost a fully rendered done skull. Almost any customer, if you're a beginner painter with not a lot of freehand experience, especially in the detail of the skulls, this is probably about where you want to stop and maybe bring in more erasing work, maybe bring in a brush if you're better with a brush. Because this is where brush control is going to make you or break you once you get inside here. But we still have a little bit of room. Texture. A little bit of texture goes a long way. Little bit, not a lot. And a little bit of extra shading off to the side. Kind of radius out that skull. And I usually like to go a little bit between the eyes, and I come up to give it more of like a frowny face. And I want to darken the left side of those teeth, okay? And then what I like to do, I soften under the eye, kind of loop there. And then under where the cheekbones curl over the jaw. Okay, this is all soft shading at this point. No super detail like dagger stroke line work. It's all very simple. If you want to cap off that eye with like an eyeball, put your stencil back on. Where's the other half? There we go. Oh, I lose everything. Ah, right here. You guys are all quiet tonight. I guess it's Friday. Okay. So, you got the big one in there. So what you can do now is I got that one there. If I want to put the iris and kind of come up to the center, I can see through it just a little bit. I put a light dot in, just a little shading. Okay, see, very little. And then we try. Okay, I'm going to do it freehand. I'm going to put the dot in the middle of the eye. And then what we'll do is we'll take, where is it? There's my eraser. We'll do a quick little highlight. Yeah, it is, Michael. It's a little bit goes a long way, and that's that less is more. Oh, where'd my eraser tip go? Lost it. There we go. Oh, man. I'm missing a piece to my eraser. Okay, I guess I'm not using it. Oh. There we go. So look, just watch this little highlight. You can use the stick eraser and electric eraser like this. I'm just going to go put that pupil in. Get a little highlight. Boop. And that's all it took. If you want, you can do more of the teeth. You could do texture. You can really mess around with it all you want. Sorry about that, my phone's buzzing. Okay. Alright. So that finishes him like 90%. I can go in and I can do more later. And we can darken the smoke. And we can do all sorts of fun stuff with this, and we'll get to that. Let's move over to the other skull. And run the same approach that we just did. But on a dark surface of what we got. And you'll see some really cool benefits. Okay. I'm not going to work too much on the outside because it's fire glow, so it wouldn't really have a shadow back there. But we're going to work inside these eyes. So same approach. I'm going to come in here. We're going to hit these, make them darker. Maybe we'll make these a little darker. We can always brighten it back out. Okay. Now I'm going to hit the nose so you can see it. You've got to be a little bit harsher here. And then little teeth gaps. We'll hit those a little harder. Okay, now you can see where that is. But that looks pretty cartoony, right? I think it looks a little too cartoony, and we're going to fix that. So we're going to darken the sides so they almost go away. You don't really see them too much. I'm going to work a little bit of texture into here because I can't do any erasing. So we're going to do a little bit of black texturing. And we're going to have to rely on our highlighting more to bring this guy to life. This side we worked on the shadowing to bring it to life. This side, because you're on a darker surface, we need to rely more on the highlighting. Okay? So I'm going to push everything back down. Remember, it's that push-pull. Kind of mid-tone everything out. But this is not pure white. This is gray. Okay? If I switch back to my gray, it's not going to be bright enough to do much, okay? Okay, but I can still soften, and I can still pick out the glow of the eyes. But what I can also do is I gotta pick up some details. So watch, I have this. I want to pick out the sides here a little bit, and here underneath, so I get a little lift. But the main thing I want to do is I want to get this nose punched out. So look at this. This is right here. This part is the top of the nose. So watch. I come up here, I do a nice soft dagger stroke up. And see what that does? That just brought the nose socket forward. If I flip this around like this, I get the bottom, and I can just come down a little bit. And now it starts to radius that. Now what I do, I take the top of the eyelid. And all these, for those who need to know, it's all marked out. So right here, there's your map. Nose top, nose bottom, eye socket top, eye socket bottom, circles, like you don't know. But everything's mapped out on this, so if you lose track of it. Now watch when I bring the eyelids up. I'm going to bring the top of the eye, and I'm just doing a core highlight right up here. Flipping it, doing the other side. Right up here, and I can kind of come up the center again and just brighten that. See how now we're starting to get that three-dimensional feel to the skull? Watch here, I can bring up the side a little more, and I can hit that kind of center, and I can hit maybe a bright. Remember, this is still gray. So I could still go one brighter, and I'm going to. Now, if you're here watching this, that's the top of the eye. Roll it over. And if I bring up, where is it? Oh, where's my guy? Where's my guy? Look at the brightest spot around the eye. Where is it? The brightest spots are the nose. Oops. The nose bridge and under each eyelid. Eye socket. The very leading edge. Those are your key points. So it hits the teeth, it hits the septum, it hits the nose, and then it hits obviously the top of the forehead. Okay? So what I gotta do, where was I? Oh yeah. I want to bring up the front of the teeth a little bit so I can make these middle teeth brighter. I can actually bring these cheekbones up a little brighter. But the main thing I got to do is the bottom of the eyelid. So again, top of the eyelid right there. Rotate it. And I'm just hitting, I don't know if you can see it, I'm just hitting that leading edge. Okay. And I usually don't go this much into it, but this is how I started to really understand light and shadow, by kind of working this harsh and then going in for more details. You know, I rely on the stencil a lot more than I do nowadays, but alright, so now I'm going to go to pure white and do a lot more freehand and really start to send this home. I'm going to do it here and then a final dark pass. Alright, so see how bright everything looks? And most people think it's white. I'm going to go in and now I'm going to hit this more freehand. So look, bright highlight. Right in the eye center. See, everything starts to get a better glow because it's established. No bids on these have been given. I need a little reducer. I'd probably say these are just going to go as a pair. I think they'll be cool as a pair. So I don't want to do the bid on one, bid on the other. So I'm just treating this as one painting. And it'd be kind of cool, double framed in the same frame, I think. I think would be cool. I think we got a bid from Mr. Stanton. Thank you, sir. We'll put that in. Thanks, Stanton. $100. So it's 1/2 paintings for is what you're getting with this one. And yeah, my goal was to get some good footage of this so I can make some. I gotta start making some nice shorts, short video and short clips. So I think this would be cool. Yeah, it's a great reference panel to have. It's a great starter panel to have and look at and visualize. Okay, so now, look, now I can hit the highlight here. I can bring up this cheekbone. I can do under the eye. Really hit a nice bright spot. See how fast this starts to come together? Here. Watch this, right here. Let me see if I can go up. So watch what this does. It just starts to bring everything together. And even now we can start integrating it to smoke, the fire. See what I mean? Because I set it up ahead of time, now the white is creating a glow. It's not so dramatic, but it's actually more dramatic because it has a little bit of contrast. What reducer are you using to paint? Anytime I use the 4012. Yeah, so 4012, don't use it with most of the new paint. They got rid of 4012 a few years ago. It still works on some of the stuff, but a lot of the new stuff, it can separate certain colors. Because I forget, what's the W500? W500 is what? I forget off the top of my head. 4020 can be a little aggressive. It's hotter. I use the 4021 on everything now. I used to use the 4011. 4020 is a more automotive reducer. No, I know it's all Createx, but I'm not sure what color W500 is. Well, what W500 is. Don't have that. Don't know what that is. So 4020 is a hot solvent-based reducer for water-based. So if you paint cars for a living, you're probably more used to solvent systems. Just under the Wicked label W500/4012. Okay, I'm not sure. So the 4012 I don't use for anything. If you're used to solvent paint, I would stick with solvent paint. I would probably stay with House of Color is what I use for my automotive solvents. I've also used some Ace of Shades and Inspire. All work pretty well. Revolt is supposed to be really good. I have not personally used it. So that if you're staying in the solvent system, I would use that. For water-based systems, if you want to spray base colors with your normal automotive spray, that's fine. For airbrush on top of it, water-based, you want to stay water-based, especially in your house if you do it at home. I use Createx colors for all my water-based custom painting and illustrations is what I use, which is what I'm using here. Okay, so let's get back to here. Oh. again, I'm kind of going back through, and there's the top of the nose. Now I can be a little bit more in the center, and the bottom of the nose, it can be here. Okay, and you see now it all starts to get radius. There still needs to be a lot of detail in here to carve it out, but I'm gonna hit some more of this fire and get it. Oops. This is not really a fire demo. I'm just kind of doing it, but you notice how I worked loose and then I got tighter. Yeah, so solvent systems are pretty forgiving. So, Inspire, Tamco, Revolt, are all in House of Color. They're all going to work pretty similar. I find, for me, House of Color opaques flow a lot smoother than the other brands I've used, and their candies are more dynamic. But it's a preference thing. Ambers, yes, I use the 4021 pretty much exclusively. For everything in Createx now. I used to use the 4011 or a mixture of 4011 and 4012, which was a 4-to-1 mixture. But now I pretty much just use 4021 for everything. And honestly, my 4011 is what I clean my brushes with. Okay, so as far as the fire, I've done all the looser. Now I'm tightening things up. So that's the tight and bright parts. Establishing an outer glow. Just keeping it simple. You're welcome. Now I'm going to go really bright outside him, and that should give me all the contrast I need to pop him off. Really get now here, under the mouth. So now it starts to, settles a little. Still too wet. We'll fix that. But now you notice the skull really starts to pop. We start to get a nice even glow. And we have to start softening all these details, which is going to come next. On the white side, there's not much I'm going to do here with the white, but I can. So you'll see I can do a lot of freehand. I made a mess of my bench. Okay. I can add in some more texture with the white because it is going to show up. But it's going to be hard to see on camera. But notice, see, you get a little bit. See? A little bit of texture. But I can focus more on making the center of the skull bright. Here to here. A little bit of brightness up here. And just really focusing on highlighting things. Is water most okay to breathe? So if you're doing large amounts of painting, you should be wearing a mask no matter if it's water-based or solvent. I usually work in here with an extraction fan running. This is my recording studio where I do the channel, so I don't use solvent up here at all. And when I work heavy amounts of paint, I will turn the fans on. Little bits like this, you're pretty much fine, but I would still recommend, because long exposure, you can develop some hypersensitivity to it. So I would recommend wearing something. Now for the eye, I'm going to hit a little white on the edge to kind of make it a glow. Oh, very cool, man. I'm glad you're learning a lot. That's kind of the goal for this. I really want to add a bunch of short videos. So what I'm probably going to do is take a lot of this footage, I'm probably going to re-voice over it and do some nice short content. and I'll probably add some details as I go. Because we're at the 2-hour mark. Let me just switch up and just show you some closing freehands, and then I'm going to wrap the rest up like kind of in a final where I'm not like doing it live, because I want to wrap up the very final details and I want to explain it in the video kind of more scripted. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, and then I'll do the finals later. Okay. So I'm going to make this black really thin. And I want to get this really glassy because I want to do a lot of fine details here. Alright. At this point, I'm pretty much freehand bound. So this is about all you're going to be able to get to without freehand control. You're going to get things that look a little stencily. The white's going to look a little harsher. The black, if you keep your paint solid stencil, it looks really good. This looks okay, but I would do a lot more work with it, and I'm going to wrap it up. But let's focus on this guy. So this is where I start carving freehand. I'm going to shadow this a little bit more. I'm going to maybe come off here and just give her a little more of kind of a cartoon sweep and look to it. And I got a cross over here I don't like, but watch. I'm going to take this part of the stencil and I'm going to make a nice just kind of refine it. Just going to work on this outer just a little bit more. Okay. All right. Details. This is where the freehanding comes in, guys. I'm going to come up and do little hits off the eyebrows. A bit of freehand over the eye. Carve up here. I'm going to put a little crack. Right under here. Darken where that eyeball goes behind. Hit that pupil. Little bits. Do a little crack up the nose. Okay. Up here, I want to separate him just a little bit more. Darken this socket. See, just keep refining it. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, the light-dark demonstration is really the key. So see how much that starts to work. And before I do the teeth, let me go up back to the other side and kind of get the same thing with the pure black. So now I'm going to hit here. I'm going to hit here. Darken that up. But this is where I can really, on the dark side, you can really play a lot more. Because I can start bringing up more contrast. To everything. Because it's not as harsh, because this is darker, so I can really start playing with the details more. And I can now kind of make this guy a little bit more in silhouette. Watch. So I can do this. Take the negative part of the stencil, I can darken the side off. And just really start bringing him back into the dark. And just playing with the contrast. I planned on doing him more contrast, so I didn't do exactly what I wanted to do here. But I think it's working out. So now I can play him a little bit more. That nose socket. And that's the nice thing about these stencils, the positive negative line right up nice. So you can keep kind of working things. And that transparent black, that transparent black, I can start to tone. And now I can do the teeth. So what I do with the teeth, I go from the middle, those joints, and I do upwards dagger strokes from that center, and I loop to the next one. I know I make it sound easier than it is. It's not that it's easy, it just takes a lot of practice to get really comfortable at it. And what I do from the bottom, I usually do the bottom edge and I go up and meet them. And I'll show this easier on the white side. Sure, this skull is supposed to be in darkness a lot, so. And don't worry, this one's a little jumbled up on the video, but I'm going to use this footage and kind of re-edit it and make it a little bit more clearer on the verbiage and stuff. I'm going to tone him down a little bit. And really work him in. But you'll see, the same color approaches yield two different results. I want to get this a little darker here. I'm going to blend this out. Thank you, Gary. Let's work back on this side. I'm going to work the smoke a little bit more after. I am at the end of a very long day, and I don't want to mess it up. Okay, so on the light side, I gotta do this and finish up. So just notice we're getting hot in here. Alright, so if you notice on the teeth, you have the marks, the tick marks from the stencil. So those get layered in. And what I do, I follow those as a guide. Okay? For this middle one, I start from inside and I do a slight dagger up, and I move to the next one. Up, up. Oops. And I come right up and basically define. Yeah, when I get this hot up in here, I start to. One thing about water-based versus solvent, you can be a little more forgiving. When you start getting above 80 degrees in your studio, you got to start changing the reduction in pressure. Yep. Okay, so from there we go up, up, up. There we go. That's better. And then from the bottom, I do the same thing. I go from in between the gaps and I come up. I'm not doing each individual tooth like a loop. Okay, I'm coming from the bottom up and from here up, and that's giving me the view of it being a complete tooth. Okay, let's hit some shadow, some core shadow on this side. Add some more details from Gerald and little texture effects, and put the skull back into darkness fully. Where's the negative? There it is. There we go. Push this around. Clean up the smoke on this side a little bit more. Yes, definitely don't hit that like and subscribe and all that jazz. Let's do some final. I'm going to darken a few things. Tone over it. And then we'll hit some. Ooh, that's the wrong one. Oops. Kind of smoothing that out a little bit. Now I need to go in for the bright. Some pure white highlighting, and we're going to wrap this up. sparks. Highlight the eyes. Get under these teeth. And that will pretty much wrap it up, except for some little loose odds and ends, which I have to do when I'm not on my 14th hour. Let this kind of roll in and engulf them a little bit more, I think will be cool. Yeah. And that's really it. We can just a little bit. Because this is gray, I can put a little bit of white, kind of spark some fire out here as well. And kind of balance it up. I'd like to do a little bit more work in here to get it to really where I want it. So maybe I'll do another video on, you know, black and white skull on a black surface. But this kind of shows you the two approaches for dark and light. If I can do this. Yeah, there we go. So I hope you learned a lot about it. I know a little bit of it went sideways. I tried to do, I think, too much in the 2-hour feeds with the cutting of the stencils, the whole explanation, the brush unveil, and everything else, but we got everything through. But I hope you kind of understood the process of working from a mid-tone and then pulling light and dark versus trying to go white, black, you know, or black, white over black or white surface. And constantly fighting it, which is kind of what I was doing here a little bit, and I wasn't getting the soft tone I wanted because it wasn't part of my initial plan and how I went about it. But you can see with using a very limited color palette of just really 2 colors, but making 4 out of them at different transparency levels and working from that mid-tone of, depending on your substrate, and pulling at different rates, dark on light, light on dark. But the most important thing is staying soft and then adding your details and control, so you never have to really worry about pushing it. If you started with straight black, on this side especially, I wouldn't have this depth, this kind of soft color transitions, okay? But by starting with the gray, I was able to do the black and white. Because see how you can see this white and this white here? If I had started with pure black on a pure white panel, and you know, and then I wouldn't be able to do this. I need to get gray in there, and black by itself doesn't get a soft gray, so you got to mix black and white together, and you work in that mid-tone, and you'll get this much softer skull that has just a lot more depth to it, and you know, just a lot more. It looks like you can put your hand underneath them, right? You know, that's what you want out of it. You want to get that depth, and you can only get that depth if you kind of work in, you know, mid-tones and dark and light. So I hope you guys got a lot about it, how to use the stencils effectively without overusing them. And remember, keep your edges soft, and you know, and you have a lot more time to catch your mistakes and work it. So yeah, I think it worked out really good. I want to thank everyone for tuning in for this 2.5-hour live stream. I had a lot of issues prior to the feed, so I was glad it went off without a hitch, and the sound worked good, and the video looked good, and everything's good. And I did hit record, so I should have some good footage. And yeah, we'll turn this into a more concise video after the fact, and get it up there in not a 2.5-hour time frame, and get this condensed on like a 15-20 minute video, and then maybe some shorts. I think it's a plan. Todd, Donna, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for the super chats. Thank you everyone for the bids. Gary, I believe, I'll double check, but I think you were high at 150. Awesome, thank you very much. And, oh, and I think what I'm going to do here, oops, and I haven't used it yet. I've used it at Coast, but Clean Armor was kind enough to send me some matte and gloss of their new UV Cure clears that Rhino's been using and really digging it, so he can be able to do a coating a lot faster. So I'm going to use these, I think, and I'll record how those worked out. So I'm really excited to work with the stuff here at the studio and be able to kind of clear these faster, multiple sessions with that UV Cure clear. And I'm really excited to see how the matte goes. So what I'm thinking of doing on this is, because it's black and white, maybe when I clear them, I'll clear one matte, one gloss, and maybe do the black. I don't know, I'll figure out which way we go with it. That might be a cool experiment too. So yeah, I'm excited about that. So everyone have an awesome weekend. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you to all my down and dirty tricksters, all my members. Right there. Thank you so much. I'm not going to read them all off, but all the gold skulls, even here over a year, you're awesome. You rock. Thank you. I got to figure out some more giveaways and some member content. I will get to the DDT, the down and dirty trick ideas, and I think we'll try to get that for next week's feed. I should be doing next week's feed. I got to double check if that comes close to 4th. Because I think it might be the 3rd. I might push it to the week after, or maybe I'll do something early next week. So I will keep you all posted. Get on the socials, check it out, keep up to date with news, and thanks for tuning in. Have a great one. Appreciate it. Peace.